Hey, welcome back. Or technically, I was brought to you by the algorithm. Did you know that was going to be me? If not, we're kind of like two people on a blind date if you think about it. Except, we're here to talk about someone else's relationship and financial situation. So, ex-Olympian boxer Zou Shiming recently appeared on a reality TV show with his wife Ranyingying called Sisters Home 2. It is a reality show where they invite celebrities on and then they document their lives over the next couple of weeks. But the catch is that every single guest who gets invited on, without exception, is in the middle of navigating a difficult time in their life. It's like they try to assemble the Avengers, except the people who show up are just hanging by a thread. And then the show basically acts like an observational program while they try and make it through life, and you get to be there to see it. And the reason this couple is going viral is because the netizens have realized that their life is royally f***ed. Like, put it this way, you combine all the problems that you see the celebrities on this show are facing. You think they have a rough, and then you take a look at Zou and his wife Ying, and you realize, oh, that's just this couple's regular Monday. I'll give you an example by comparison, right? So, for example, one of the celebrities on this show is this comedian who divorced her deadbeat countryside husband, and then she turned that whole experience into a stand-up comedy routine, and now she's a pretty big deal in the Chinese comedy scene. So right now, she's trying to relocate into a bigger city, away from the village she's from, but her motion is unfortunately getting stopped by the city council because she lacks the necessary paperwork to move across the city. So, it's a problem, but I wouldn't say it's the biggest deal in the world. We also got this CEO of a major talent agency who is not mentally in the best shape because she's been having managerial problems internally, but I'd say she's also in a better position than probably 99% of the people on this planet. But you cannot say the same for Zou and his wife, because their problems cannot even be summed up in a single sentence. So let me tell you about their situation, one piece of information at a time. But no matter if you're like Zou, or if you're a small business owner or an aspiring entrepreneur, then you will know it is a pain in the ass when it comes to scalability and finding the right tools to support your product. That's why I'm excited to chat about our sponsor today, 11 Creative. It's by 11 Labs. It is a all-in-one platform for generating, editing, and localizing audio and video content. How this platform can help you is, say you have an ad campaign for a product that you really want to sell and you're like, oh, this is good, this is just missing the chef's kiss, the mwah. Well, you can generate full studio quality tracks with its music generation tool for commercial purposes to dub over your ad campaign with no copyright issues. And then let's say your ad campaign does well, it's got great conversions and you want to expand into other regions. 11 Creative offers human-like text-to-speech functions so you can generate voiceovers over the said campaign to reach new audiences by dubbing your content, potentially across 90+ languages. And you can use it for editing purposes too, because it's got a studio function which serves as a full timeline editing platform, and you get everything you need. It does it all in one subscription. Are you paying 4 to 5 separate tools and it's eating into your balance sheet? That's something worth considering too. So if that sounds like something that'll contribute greatly to your business, use my link to sign up for 10,000 free credits. So in one of the first scenes that we get from this show introducing the couple is that you realize they sleep in different rooms. Like, they'll wake up at different times, they'll have different routines, they both have their little chill spots in the house, and then they just stay there for the majority of the day and they barely talk to each other. They're basically roommates at this point, I think, because I don't even think they So not really a good sign of a healthy marriage. So the wife Ying then straight up just comes on to tell us there is no longer love in their relationship. She does not feel like she's supported, and she feels like all the effort she is putting into this family is one-sided because she gets none in reciprocation from her husband Zou. And what exactly does that mean? Well, Ying then goes on to say she takes care of the kids, she does all the chores, while Zou, the husband, likes to spend his day reminiscing his past glory days when he was still a boxing champion. Because ever since he retired from the boxing scene, all he does now is play games on his phone. There was even this one time, as Ying recalls, where one of their kids got really sick, and instead of taking him to the hospital, bro was just lying flat in his room. He is checked out mentally, physically, and spiritually. And then she's like, I'm not gonna lie, I thought about divorce multiple times, because we've been married for like, what, 20 years? And the thought that I might have to live like this for another 20 years makes me want to die. We then get to this one scene where Ying starts reminiscing of the good old days, because it wasn't always like this. In fact, the first half of their marriage was romantically spectacular, and at one point, they were even the golden couple in the Chinese boxing scene. Because here's an interesting thing about Zou and Ying's dynamic during Zou's prime, just to give you a bit of context. Before this couple stepped foot into the sport, boxing in China was a pretty niche sport, but they popularized it because Zou racked up 2 Olympic golds. And then after that, he goes pro, which is a very difficult transition, but he does it anyways. He secures the flyweight championship title in 2016, so you had a lot of patriotic boxing fans watching for Zou. There were a lot of people who got into boxing because of Zou, and it is simply because he's really good at what he does. But then you had a whole other crowd who wasn't exactly that into boxing, but they were tuning in because of Ying, because she would be always by his side whenever he does a fight. He, matter of fact, even proposed to Ying with one of the gold medals he won, which is, it's beautiful. No, I like to imagine somewhere there is a Zou Ying fan in a 10-year coma, and all they hope to see when they wake up one day is to check on their favorite boxing couple. Because statistically, it is possible, right? God, at that point, it's like, do you even hope they wake up? But anyways, the vibe this couple was given off, if you just look at these images, is like the gladiator and his queen. It kind of goes hard, I'm not gonna lie. It's a solid vibe. Now, I think that did draw a lot of attention in itself, but the part that drew the most attention is when Zou was actually fighting, because Ying, his wife, would be offside, just cheering vigorously every time. Like, I don't know how his opponents feel when they see this, but I feel like it takes a proud woman to get to a point in a relationship where you're cheering for the man and you're holding his child in one hand while you're at it, screaming at the top of your lungs to beat the shit out of the other guy. That's something you don't see every day. Maybe that's why he was able to be on a generational run. Anyways, the point I'm trying to make is you can probably tell they had something special going on, because even if this was all for showbiz, I think there is still genuine passion in these moments, because Ying then tells us she used to deeply admire him. Like his wife Ying gave us an example on the show, with this one time Zou was training in the US, and this was when he was signed with a US promoter called Top Rank. And Ying reminisces, during that time, she was practically a full-time housewife for him. She would personally cook for him every day to make sure he's in top condition. There was even this one time where she had to drive him to the Hollywood Hills whilst pregnant with their second child in like a minivan, and then the roads were like windy as hell, but she was doing it because she was like, this is the man who's gonna go down in the history books, and I'm just glad to be participating. And then there were times where Zou Shiming was under so much pressure he would randomly lash out. Because apparently this is one time, dry ass climate in LA made her constipated, and then she's like, all right, I guess I'm gonna make some vegetables. A little fiber to help the pipe, you get what I'm trying to say? So she's preparing vegetables, and then he's eating his dumplings. And then bro sees that, throws his chopsticks at her, and then he was just like, but she was all willing to tolerate and accommodate for it, because she always was worried that if she caused any problems, then that could affect his performance in the ring. I feel like from the way she's describing the relationship, it high-key sounds toxic, but she said, right, it's as she said, it's exactly where she wants to be, so I ain't saying nothing. But I am sure at this point, most of the people watching this reality show would be on her side, because Ying's looking like this indispensable woman behind Zou's path to success, willing to bend over backwards for her man to achieve his destiny. And the way the show is putting it, bro seems like he's forgotten all about that. He's forgotten about the effort she's put in until now, and he has abandoned his husbandly duties, leaving her stranded in her own marriage. That's what it looks like, until you realize the real reason why this couple is in the Mariana trenches now in terms of marriage is because they owe 200 million RMB to the bank. In US dollars, that's almost 30 million. Oh, it all makes sense now. The no love thing in their marriage is quite literally the least of their concerns. I'm gonna tell you how it happened, right? It started all the way in November 2016. That's where it all went downhill for the couple. So at this particular time, Zou had just secured the flyweight championship belt under his name, making him the most successful boxer China has ever seen. At this point in time, Zou and Ying had 200 million RMB in liquid assets. Not net worth, by the way. That's like me when I'm in a flex down and my opponent is quoting their net worth. So they were up at least 200 million. How do they go from that to down 200 million? Well, the first mistake was, instead of retiring at the pinnacle of his career with his championship belt under his name, bro decided to double down and do one more title defense. That's where it all gets messy, because he chooses this exact moment to break contract with two of his major partners, which not only means he's lost his backup plan in case the fight doesn't go well, but he has also lost the partners that gave him the world-class training infrastructure that secured him those titles in the first place. So during his title defense match in Shanghai, his opponent was a Japanese boxer named Kimura Sho, who was well below his ranking. But here's the part where it gets even crazier, because unlike Zou, Kimura Sho was fighting to break out of poverty, so much so that this guy was on a 16 times winning streak before he matched up with Zou. And at the same time, Kimura's mother, who was his big inspiration, recently passed away. And he stated that he was determined to take the title to his mother's grave. So already, this guy is looking like he plans to fight to the death in the ring. If I was Zou, I'm not gonna lie, I'm not fighting this guy because it's not that serious for me. Another thing that does not work in his favor is by this point in time, Zou was 36 years old. So he was about to be put in the ring with a dude 8 years younger than him. So Zou does the fight. He gets TKO'd and he loses his championship belt. And to make this whole thing even worse, before the fight, Zou's team leaned hard into the Chinese champion versus Japanese challenger narrative as he vows that the title will remain in China, turning what should have been a routine title defense match into a super high-stake battle for national pride, effectively making Zou's loss a much bigger deal than it was supposed to be, costing him a huge chunk of his fanbase overnight. He then gets sued by his other domestic promoter, Seika, and Zou was essentially left with no option but to retire on arguably the biggest L he's ever had in his professional career. Hey, so I get why he's so depressed every day, because forget about that 200 million debt. Just that loss alone has got to be devastating for a man like him. But then to make this situation a lot worse for their marriage, netizens then dug up a bit of history from the couple thanks to the reality show bringing them a huge amount of traffic, because the people wanted to know, like, who fucked it up? And it turns out, Ying used to work at CCTV as a finance broadcast intern before Zou went independent. She then quit that gig, got an MBA from Peking University just so she could manage his boxing career. Now, I would have done the same if I was in her shoes, there is no problem with that move, but Ying was widely speculated to be the one who came up with this idea, because she had a 51% majority stake in all their joint business ventures. She was likely driving the decision making, because Zou was focusing on training. But by this point in time, the couple was still in the millions. They were still up, because 200 million RMB is a lot to lose over a couple lawsuits. Surely you think at this point, he should just put it all in an ETF and live off the interest for a comfortable life. But no, Zou and Ying are the type of people, respectfully, to obviously either go hard or go home. The couple then decided to open an 18,000 square feet boxing gym situated in the most expensive real estate areas in uptown Shanghai, where the sheer cost of rent alone is $7 million per year. The couple then reportedly spent another 15 million on the interior design, including treadmills costing up to 30 grand per unit. I mean, what kind of a treadmill costs 30 grand? We've got hanging chandeliers costing up to 500,000 US dollars per set. But here's the part where it gets even more insane. The gym runs on a tiered membership, where the cheapest yearly membership starts at 5k US dollars, while the most expensive tier costs all the way up to 13 grand. And only then do you get Zou as a private trainer. So unless you meet these two criteria, number one, you're a diehard Zou Shiming fan, and number two, you can financially afford to pay him, you're not going to be doing all of that. But then the real question that comes is, how many diehard fans would Zou Shiming even have after that whole boxing debacle with Kimura Sho? But surprisingly, the boxing gym was actually profitable the first month it was opened. But for the remaining 11 months and 6 years, it operated at a fucking L. But wait, there's more. Because throughout the same time period, the couple, in an attempt to recoup the losses, then opened 20 more companies, diversifying its investment across milk tea, hot pot, and fashion, you know, all the boxing adjacent businesses. At one point, bro even threw in 5 million US dollars at a crypto coin, all of which failed in a spectacular fashion, sending their net worth down into the Mariana Trenches. And then to make things even worse, as more and more news come out on how this couple is selling multiple prime real estates, I think there was one about Ying having to sell 72 Hermes bags to pay some of the debtors. People discovered that this couple had signed personal unlimited joint and several liability guarantees. In plain English, that basically means every single loss their company racks up by the dollar doesn't stay with the company, it becomes personal debt split between the two of them, therefore leaving them personally 30 million US dollars in debt. So basically, take all that into consideration. If we then refer back to the reality show, then it's, hey, not exactly surprising that this couple is not having the best time. I mean, the fact that bro still has the will to live is genuinely impressive. So at this point in time, Ying then mentions to us that the couple is now purely staying afloat through live streaming as their day-to-day activities. At first, Zou didn't even want to do it, because he tells her, hey, he's a champion, and he wouldn't stoop as low as live streaming just to survive. But you know what? Somehow he was convinced to stream after a couple of years later. And now, bro's officially doing live streams, selling snacks for a living. Another thing Sisters of Home 2 does to absolutely ensure the suffering is dialed to the max for its participant is that the show is structured in a way where there is essentially two segments to the program. The first segment is obviously the observational portion that we've been talking about for the past 10-20 minutes. That plays out your life in front of a panel of analysts ranging from psychologists to professionals from various degrees of industries, so they can observe from multiple perspectives. The second segment then invites the actual celebrity onto the panel, right, the one in the clip, so they can be provided advice from these analysts after they've taken a detailed 30-minute viewing session into your life, which sounds good in theory, except the discussion portion, right, makes up about 15-20% of the reality show, which obviously means that's not where the budget's going to be going. So what actually happens is that the so-called licensed professionals on the panel just gets less and less qualified the further the camera zooms back, until you are left with people that unironically give you the middest takes you've ever heard in your life to your situation, and then you're forced to smile and accept the terrible advice given. For example, one of the goals Ying has for Zou on this program is that she wishes Zou can use this opportunity to try get outside his head, maybe be himself again after all these years of being in debt.
其实这次我来姐姐当家，我特别希望改变我跟邹永明的现状，我希望他支棱起来。
We then get to this one scene where he attempts exactly that, where earlier during the day, Zou tries to open the car door for Ying, which was then met with a cold shoulder.
你平时会给我开门吗？
我没给你开过门吗？
几乎没有，很少见。
你的良心都让狗吃了。
He also then attempts to throw in a little bit of flirting in the car, right? Tried to spark back some of the passion, I guess, lost from their marriage, but he was met with a cold shoulder again from Ying, who found this move to be highly unusual from his typical nonchalant demeanor, which ultimately made Zou regret the decision in trying to open up. The situation then intensifies as Zou refuses to address the situation when Ying asks him what's wrong, which ultimately ends in a full-blown Cold War. So, 52-year-old relationship psychologist from Tsinghua University gives her humble opinion and believes that if after all they've been through, he's still willing to make the effort, no matter how trivial, then that is good news for their relationship. And the fact that he could remain mad from the morning until the evening shows that he cares a lot more than she thinks he does in this relationship. Which is then followed up by another psychologist who tells her she should just get a divorce. Because if there has been breakup attempts in the past, there's probably reasons behind it, and that's just not acceptable for him. Hey, but what about their 3 kids and generational debt problem? And oh yeah, her goal to not let this happen. We also have insights from this 32-year-old Xiaohongshu influencer who tells her she should just give him a sense of fear because her husband Zou reminds her of her dad. He thinks you won't leave him, he thinks you need him more than he needs you, so he's not trying anymore in this relationship, he doesn't love you anymore, he doesn't think about what you want anymore, he just wants himself. Okay, we're still talking about Zou and Ying, right? You know what, whenever I hear these people speak, I just get the feeling I'm watching Shark Tank, except the investors who wants in on your business gets progressively more and more middle class. As of now though, the netizens have taken Zou's side by a landslide, because people are firstly convinced that the Kimura match and the 20+ businesses were all Ying's idea, so people have pinned it on her that she's pretty much responsible for his generational downfall. But secondly, there are also people who say this reality show is a little fake. It's playing up a lot of Ying's contributions in the relationship, and it is downplaying a lot of Zou's. I just think it's a tragic position to be in as a husband and father, because as a child, who'd want to grow up with their family's dirty laundry on the internet for everybody to see, even if it's fake? But let me know if you agree. I love you guys to death. It's been a long time, but we're back now, baby, so thanks for watching. See you in 2 weeks.